can the government say, we want you to stay in your house? Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. Today I wanted to discuss the constitutionality of the shelter-in-place, stay-in-place, lockdown, whatever we're calling it, that has been imposed on us for several weeks now. So every time I turn on the news, I'm scrolling through some type of social media stream, there's a lot of talk right now about how people feel that their rights are being violated and that here as Americans we have a constitution and this lockdown is not constitutional. So I went on and I have researched this and I pulled from several different websites, and the two websites that I'm going to use today, I will link them down below. One is a conservative magazine and one is more of a left of center, so a more liberal source. So I did use both a conservative and a liberal source when I was looking at this. And both sources did state that as of now, everything that the government has done has been constitutional. So let's have a quick discussion about rights. I've taught 8th grade U.S. history before, and 8th grade U.S. history is early United States history, and I currently teach AP government, and I've also taught just general education government. So I do have a background in teaching this stuff, and yeah, I know the Bill of Rights. So the First Amendment is, we teach in 8th grade, a colleague taught me RAPS, religion, assembly, press, petition, and speech, and so we do have those rights. They are not uninhibited, though. We cannot run into a crowded movie theater, yell fire, and think that that's perfectly acceptable. I cannot go out and assemble with many of my friends laying down in the middle of the freeway and not expect that to be broken up in some way. So there are limits to our freedoms, just like the Second Amendment talks about gun ownership and the right to bear arms, but there have been different court cases that have limited that, and that's a topic for another day. I'm not arguing whether things are right or wrong. I'm arguing that this is our right and that it has been changed, and that is not arguing, there's no argument there. Whether or not it's correct or whether or not you agree with it, that's an argument. We're not talking about that. So when has this happened in the past? Well, this isn't our first pandemic. It's the first one that I remember. It's the first one where I kind of have seen that it sort of shut down the entire world, but we also live in a different world now. You may have heard it referenced a lot, but the 1918 flu, 1917-18, right in there, flu I hear that referenced the most. Well, the argument is, well, we've changed a lot since 1918. And yeah, thankfully, our healthcare system is leaps and bounds better than it was back then. We're also fighting a new illness, and so a lot of our advanced medicine is only going so far. So yeah, though we live in a different time, our scientists and medical professionals have kind of been, had the carpet kind of pulled out from underneath them right now because they're dealing with something that's new. But the last time this happened, the government used stay-at-home orders, and that was sort of a non-gathering to try to curtail the illness, and so many people died. And then they noticed that kind of when everybody stopped going out and assembling, things kind of calmed down. There was a variety of other reasons for that too, but they did use social distancing. There was in my studies, I saw that there was an outbreak of the bubonic plague. The one that killed like a third of Europe. It hasn't gone away. It's still here, actually. We just know how to treat it now. But in 1900 to like 1904, there was a resurgence of the bubonic plague. And it started in China. And because China is a direct trade route with San Francisco, it was brought here. It was brought to Chinatown. And kind of Honolulu plays a part. Anyway, I digress. It's an interesting story. Use Wikipedia. It was fascinating. But the mayor of San Francisco at the time issued kind of a lockdown of Chinatown and didn't let any of the Chinese leave. There's some other stuff involved where if you were white, you were allowed to leave. I'm not going to get into that, but he did use a lockdown of the city at that time. Fast forwarding a little bit, looking at polio. So my parents grew up where polio was like an actual thing, and they were born at a time where polio was very scary. We didn't have a vaccine, thank you, Dr. Jonas Salk, for giving us the vaccine for polio. And before that, when it was polio season, they would close swimming pools, they would close down playgrounds, parents would pull their kids in, they wouldn't allow kids to congregate and hang out together because we weren't talking about chicken pox, we weren't talking about the measles. You know, if people got polio, it can go anything from a mild case to you were living the rest of your life in an iron lung. And so parents were scared, very afraid of polio. And there were shutdowns that transpired because of that. There are prior cases where the Supreme Court has upheld that people, this was from 1905, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, Pastor Jacobson sued Massachusetts saying he did not want to be vaccinated, and the Supreme Court actually upheld that somebody can be vaccinated against their will. That was a precedent. So every time new things happen, the judicial system goes back to the Constitution as a framework. It is a framework, and they pull from there. And so we cannot just say we have these rights black and white, because that's not the case. Since the framers jotted this down with ink and quill, there have been other cases that have evolved from it, and other sort of stipulations put on it. So why is this legal? All right, so here's the deal. The government, federal and state, have an authority to preventively detain people to prevent public health. Because we are dealing with a virus, and we can call it the invisible enemy, we can say we're at war, we're dealing with a virus. And because we're dealing with a virus, every person has the potential to be a carrier for this virus, therefore making every person, theoretically, a threat to public safety. So, can the government say, we want you to stay in your house? Yeah. There's nobody with a gun outside my door. We do not have martial law. If I go out of my house and there's nobody stopping me saying, where are you going? Why are you going there? None. And I know there's anecdotal evidence of this happening, but our actual sheriff's department where I live has said, we don't have time for that. So if you're out, if you don't have a mask, just exercise your better judgment. So I get that there's anecdotal evidence saying my friend's cousin's aunt's Uncle Susie was stopped randomly on a Friday night. Were they really stopped randomly on a Friday night, or was there more to that story? Because there's one version, the second version, and somewhere in there is the truth. As of now, everything that I'm seeing points to, if you gotta go to the store, go to the store. I have been to the store several times. No one stopped me. The store hasn't even, the stores are just now saying, as of this date, you're not allowed in without a mask. But I've seen people without masks at the grocery store until, as of now. So I know that several stores today just announced that they're going to do that. But as of now, no. So the government can say, hey, we'd really like you to stay in your house. The government can say, you know what? We don't want large crowds of people together because of a threat to public safety. Therefore, we are shutting down businesses we don't think are essential. As much as I miss my nails and my feet are atrocious, it's not a necessity. I don't have to have a pedicure. So I get it. It's stopping me from going to a nail salon. I don't know if you've ever been to a nail salon on a Friday afternoon, but that place can get really full, and there are tons of people in there. When you get tons of people together, viruses spread. I am a teacher. If somebody is sick, the whole class ends up sick practically, because it's really hard to social distance when you have 36 kids in a classroom. So again, the argument is the government can do this because they have a right, they have an obligation to protect public safety, and we have to assume, looking at this, that we all are a threat to public safety. If the government said, we're going to close every single business, nobody is allowed out of their house, and we, the government, will drive door to door like the ice cream truck and throw out supplies to you, no, that is not okay. Then at that point, we would have somebody bringing a lawsuit up against the government, state or federal at that time. But that's not what's happening. Again, there's nobody in my street. There's nobody forcing me and barring my door saying I'll deliver supplies to you. So that they're not overstepping their bounds. They're within their constitutional rights to do this. Also, if there was something where they said, if you test positive for the virus, you have to go to some detention center somewhere and you have to be quarantined somewhere else, then at that point, that would be subject to judicial review because you're being removed from your home involuntarily. As of now, the government has said, if you test positive and you're not sick enough to go to the hospital, then stay home and just quarantine yourself. And there's really nobody checking on us. They may have the health department call you, they may have your doctor call you, but they're not stationing military men outside of virus people's doors, barring them from leaving. We're supposed to use our best judgment on that. We cannot underestimate both the danger of a pandemic, nor can we underestimate the threat to our liberty. When 9/11 happened, the Patriot Act walked all over a lot of our civil liberties, and there were a few people saying it at that time, but overwhelmingly everybody was like, well, if it keeps us safe, we're good. And now we're looking at another instance where there's something major happening, and yes, there is, challenges to our liberties and to our rights. At this time, they are all seemingly constitutional, right? Now, time will tell. If people do bring court cases against the federal government, against the state government, then we will let the judicial branch sort of play that out and we'll set a precedent for the future. As of now, all of our prior cases and all of our prior knowledge, all of our prior government stuff that I have in front of me has said that this is constitutional. Is it difficult? Yeah. We are looking at mental issues, health issues, economic challenges. As of now, almost or right about 60,000 Americans have passed because of this virus. And I know there's an argument and an opinion there too. I'm stating what the numbers have been. We cannot underestimate a pandemic. We cannot underestimate our civil liberties. We cannot underestimate the toll that this is taking on everyone mentally, physically, emotionally, and economically. And at the end of the day, as of now, everything that's happening is constitutional. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again on my next one. If you have any ideas for something you would like me to research, drop them down below. If you have any, anything else you want to talk about, I'm always open. I love open and honest conversation. I love to look at the left. I love to look at the right. I love to look at the middle. So thank you so much. Have a great and wonderful day. Be safe, be sane, be informed, be good to people.